Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. My name is Patty Farley, and I'm the president of the Democratic Women's Club of Florida. It is our goal to bring together and organize in common purpose the Democratic women of Florida. We hope to encourage the active participation of our women voters in politics and promote our Democratic Party values. We constantly work to increase Democratic voter registration and participation and urge every Democrat to vote and vote Democratic. We also work to stimulate an active interest in governmental affairs among the Democrats of Florida and to provide a forum for the discussion of public matters, which is what we're concentrating on with this program this evening. I would like to extend a warm welcome to our dear friend and our opening guest for tonight, our very successful and dynamic chair of the Florida Democratic Party, Terry Rizzo.
Well, hello, Patty, and hello, Democratic Women of Florida. It is great to be with you tonight. And Patty, thank you so much for your introduction, for all you do for the women in Florida and for the voters of Florida. It is a wonderful pleasure to be with everybody here today. It is Democratic Women Rock, and the Democratic women of Florida are going to make the difference in this election, as we know. It is the most critical election of our lifetime. We've heard this a million times, and I'm going to say it for the 1,000,001st time. This is the most important election of our lifetime. In fact, one of the most important elections in the entire history of our country. What we do in this election matters, and what you do in this election matters. There is no path to the White House for Donald Trump without Florida. There isn't. So therefore, we know if we stop him here, it's game over. He will not make it to the White House. He would literally have to carry every other single swing state in the country. That will not happen. It's impossible. And so we know we're a one-state showstopper, so to speak. So Democratic women are going to be the key difference in this election. Here at the Florida Democratic Party, we are aware of how valuable and how key you are, and we are in terms of activating voters statewide. You are absolutely critical. And I also want you to know, and you may not know this, here at the FDP, 2/3 of our senior staff are women. So you can rest assured that women's voices are heard loud and clear every day in the Florida Democratic Party. Also in our organizing core and all the key in our DECs and around the state, women are active. And I want to say, Democratic women rock, as we know. All right. I want to thank everybody who's taken the time for being with us today. And we look forward to working with you as we lead into this critical election. I would like to remind you, as I always do, there are now 145 days to Election Day. 145 days. The countdown is on, and we're going to do it. Thank you, Democratic women. Thank you, Patty.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Terry. We like to say Democratic women are the heart of the party.
And we are.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We have some great informational segments for you this evening, and we want you to enjoy what the presentation is going to be and carry it back to your local communities. We have Representative Fentrice Driscoll speaking on health care. We have Representative Lorraine Ausley speaking on unemployment. And we have former Senator, current Representative Geraldine Thompson directly addressing the issue of elections, along with Commissioner Gail Johnson speaking about a racial justice program in Alachua County, where she represents. But before we move into that part of our program, I also want to introduce a woman who truly needs no introduction. She's been a fearless fighter for Democratic women and women's values for a long time. The current first chair of the Florida Democratic Party. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our personal shero, Miss Judy Mount.
Yay.
Hey, Judy.
Hi, Pat. Thank you so much for the introduction. Hello, Florida, and a special shout out to the awesome Democratic Women's Club. You know you're my favorites.
Thank you.
And the fabulous women that are on this outstanding panel that you have chosen as your speakers tonight. All three of them are super spectacular. I actually have the pleasure of working with them every day. So I know them personally. Representative Driscoll is a hardworking state rep that is involved with energy and utilities, insurance and banking, and the justice system. And State Representative Geraldine Thompson has a very deep background in elections. And Representative Ausley, the darling of Northwest Florida, she fights for She's known to be a fighter for state workers and for children and families, which is very important. You could not have picked a better panel. They're just super duper. And for this day and time, this is what we need. This is the leadership that we need. And so I hope everyone take in exactly what they're saying and they take it on and just spread the word. I want to talk to you about a couple of things, and I won't take up much of your time. But speaking of social justice, what's going on now, and how the country is changing, and this is a very emotional time. People are seeing things and going through things that we thought would never be at this place. And everybody always say, "Oh, it's just another march. Oh, it's just another march." But as you've noticed, there seems to be a change in the air, and more people are getting involved. And the fact that we have our sisters and brothers of other races now join us always makes that better because it brings more attention to it. But I also, I'm very proud of what is being accomplished. But on the other side, I would like to see more attention to, they have had the burial of Mr. Floyd. We're looking to our dear friend Ben Crump and his leadership to take care of that side. But there's a couple of females out there, especially right now, most recently, Breonna Taylor was one. And you know that story where the police went into her home on a no-knock warrant. She was asleep and they shot her 8 times. But yet and still, we don't hear that much about Breonna. And we need to continue to lift her up as well because, she needs justice as well. And, we could go back so many times, but women, we don't want them left out. We don't want nobody left out. But we are representing the women across the nation, Democratic women. And don't let anybody tell you, and when you're out and talking to your folks in your districts, in your area, please let them know that voting is the other way that we can make a change. I would hope that everybody, after they leave their marches in the various towns, that they would also march to the supervisor of elections office and get registered to vote. Or everybody seems to have a cell phone, so you can look online, get the number to your supervisor of elections, call and ask to be registered for vote by mail. Vote by mail is going to be the safest way for people not to have to get into crowds with COVID-19 out there. You don't have to get in a crowd. The elderly don't have to stand and wait. If you're younger, vote by mail so you can help us do something else that needs to be done on voting day. But please stress to your people, register to vote, request to vote by mail, and then actually vote. We cannot take a chance of letting anybody slide through the system. We need everybody voting. And I want to commend the Florida Democratic Party and inform and remind everybody that we have a voter protection department now. So if anything comes up that seems to be slick, then we have someone that you can call and you can get the help that you need. And we have some very bright attorneys that are working in that particular area. And last but not least, I want to encourage everyone to please meet your public wherever they are. Break your thoughts and what you're trying to inform them of, break it down simply so that even a child can repeat to their parents what they understood you to be saying. Because what we need to be doing is make sure that we are addressing our audiences, particularly how we are meeting them. Everybody is not on the same level. So you don't need to go and go into a level of to show us how extensive your vocabulary is when you're talking to people that use regular vocabulary every day. Just meet your people where they are and tell them what you need to know in a simple way so it can be repeated and repeated to others, and things can be passed and passed on easily without us making a lot of mistakes. Patty, I just want to say thank you guys, and Democratic Women Club, remember, I'm every woman.
Yes, you are. And I see that DWCF pin on your shoulder. I'm so proud of that. You always inspire us, Judy. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I love y'all.
Love you too. Now, we're very honored to have a very knowledgeable and former legislator working with us. And I want to now turn the program over to Dr. Cynthia Chestnut, our current wonderful legislative chair. I'm turning it over to you, Cynthia.
Thank you, Madam President. It's great to be working with you this evening. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in. Florida and our country as a whole are experiencing an overwhelming amount of stressors in our communities and individual lives as well. Tonight, we hope to speak directly to our solutions to these problems of every single day. Representative Fentress Driscoll is a product of Florida's public schools who went on to attend Harvard, where she graduated with honors and was the first African-American female student to serve as president of the Undergraduate Student Government Council. Representative Driscoll is also a graduate of Georgetown Law School and partner at the Carlton Fields firm. It's my pleasure to welcome Representative Fentress Driscoll.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chestnut, for that very warm welcome. It's very good to be here with you all. And just thanks to Miss Judy, she is a force of nature. I tell you, if we hadn't already put our money on Joe Biden, my money would be on Miss Judy for president, because she keeps us all in line and the train's running on time. Yes. So I just want to speak a little bit on healthcare and what Democrats believe about healthcare. So Democrats believe affordable, high quality healthcare is part of the American promise, that everyone should have the security that comes with good healthcare, and that no one should go broke because they get sick. Florida Democrats stand ready to protect landmark reforms that are already helping millions of Floridians. We are committed to expanding access under the Affordable Care Act to more than 1 million Floridians who work hard every day but cannot afford insurance by themselves. Democrats are also educating the public about healthcare law and giving the small businesses the help that they need to benefit from it. However, rather than helping the public, Ron DeSantis and the Republicans are spreading misinformation to prevent people from understanding the law, or out and out denying people information they need to make decisions. Several leading Florida Democrats have called for President Trump to reopen the federal health insurance exchange and to put the brakes on a lawsuit that could repeal the Federal Affordable Care Act, which we oftentimes refer to as Obamacare. The Trump administration announced April 1 that it would not reopen the exchange. Governor Ron DeSantis' office hasn't answered whether the governor's office would support reopening the exchange because of the pandemic. Florida chose not to create its own exchange after Obamacare passed, but the state's residents can seek subsidized insurance coverage through the federal exchange. You may not know this, but Florida actually leads the nation in the number of residents enrolled in the Obamacare exchange in 2020, with more than 1.9 million people. A repeal of the law also could affect Floridians who have been able to obtain coverage despite pre-existing health conditions. The Kaiser Family Foundation estimated that 3.1 million residents with pre-existing conditions are living in Florida. The Affordable Care Act was and still a big deal, and especially for women. Because of Obamacare, over 100 people no longer have to worry that an insurance company will deny coverage or charge higher premiums just because they have a pre-existing condition like high blood pressure, asthma, or diabetes. Insurance companies can no longer charge someone more because they are a survivor of domestic violence. Insurance companies can no longer charge someone more because they are a woman. Young adults can get coverage through their parents' insurance plans until the age of 26. It's illegal for healthcare providers to discriminate against transgender people. Insurance plans have to cover essential benefits like maternity care, and insurance plans now have to cover critical recommended preventative services like diabetes testing, mammograms, and contraception free of charge. Because of Obamacare, we've expanded access to birth control for women across the country. So you can hear how important healthcare is to Floridians. You can hear how this is a primary concern of Democrats and how we are in this fight for the long haul. So thank you, Dr. Chestnut, for allowing me to share that.
And thank you, Representative. It is going to take a wide coalition of Democrats to defeat Trump, and we know we can count on you to lead the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we're going to hear from another incredible woman from the Florida legislature, Representative Lorraine Ausley. Representative Ausley is now serving in the Florida House and is a candidate for state Senate. Yay. From leading the effort to create Whole Child Leon to her current leadership to bring purpose-built communities to Tallahassee, Representative Ausley has always been focused on solutions to real problems that directly help children and families. Aside from her incredible work in the legislature, she has also been a tireless fighter and dear friend to the Democratic Women's Club of Florida. Representative, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Representative Ausley.
Thank you so much, and it's great to be here. Just as an aside, as part of my Senate campaign, I'm running to represent a district of 11 counties, and I've just ridden my bike 400 miles around 11 counties. So I got showered, and I'm really glad to be here.
Well, you look great.
Well, thank you, thank you. It's a great way to see the beautiful district that I hope to represent in the Senate. So. So it's great to be here. Always love to be with our Democratic women. Always good to see Judy, and I'm sure she's upset that I'm not wearing my blue, but I'm wearing my signature green. So Democrats believe that we can create an economy where hardworking Floridians can find a job that pays the bills, where small businesses and not special interests can succeed, where a family can own their own home and children can get the high quality education that will let them dream bigger than their parents ever thought possible. Florida Democrats believe in a future where everyone who works hard can succeed. We are committed to preserving and expanding the middle class by creating an environment for middle class success and prosperity. And this means investing in people and investing in safety nets that allow our people to succeed. You know, all of this was important before COVID, and it's become even more important now. The May jobs report illustrates what so many Floridians are feeling every day. Millions of working families are still paying the price for Donald Trump's inability to manage a crisis. I'm glad that this report in May shows modest improvement, but our economy is still in a bleak state. 21 million Americans are without a job, and the rate of unemployment remains significantly higher in Black, Latino, and Asian communities. This crisis didn't have to be this bad, but our president was asleep at the wheel when he should have been listening to experts and preparing for this pandemic. We've heard a lot of promises, but we still have no plans for the rigorous testing and tracing strategy. That's the only way we should safely open our economy. We need a president who can lead us out of this crisis swiftly, calmly, and equitably. And that's why we're doing everything we can to elect Vice President Joe Biden in November.
Yes.
Our state's reliance on service jobs, from tourism to financial services, and our large elderly population make it we are going to be among the states that are hardest hit by this crisis. We know that Floridians who want to go back to work safely are ready to get back to work. But first, we have to fix our broken unemployment system. Too many Floridians have been let down by a failure to acknowledge the flaws in the system. We know those Floridians who want to get back are ready to do that, but that doesn't mean they're not entitled to their unemployment benefits. And as Democrats, we're going to continue to advocate every single day to help those Floridians who have lost their job through no fault of their own. We're also going to come back to Tallahassee to fix the unemployment system for good, to raise the benefits so that we don't have to go through this again. And for those Floridians to get back to work, we're going to have to shore up our childcare system. Parents of young children cannot get back to work if they can't find safe and affordable childcare. This pandemic has illuminated something that we already knew. Childcare is essential, and the quality of that childcare matters. As Democrats, we will continue to lead on all of these important economic issues, and we look forward to working with all of you in the coming months to make real change in November.
Thank you, Representative, and we look forward to calling you Senator.
Thank you.
Next up, we're going to hear from one of the most senior members of the Florida House of Representatives. After graduating from the University of Miami in 1970, she left her childhood home of Perrine, Florida, and moved with her husband, Emerson R. Thompson Jr., Judge Thompson, to Tallahassee, where she worked as secretary to Representative Gwendolyn Sawyer Cherry, the first African-American female elected to the Florida House of Representatives. She learned the legislative process early from a passionate and committed trailblazer. A veteran member of the Florida legislature, she previously served as a member of the Florida State Senate from 2012 to 2016 and served 3 terms in the Florida House of Representatives from 2006 to 2012. Now her constituents are especially hard hit from the pandemic, as her district contains Walt Disney World, Universal Studios Florida, SeaWorld, International Drive, and the Orange County Convention Center. Thank you, Representative, for joining us today as we pave the way forward. And it is just especially proud for me because you are one of my favorite representatives, as well as my Sora. Representative, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chestnut. And I am delighted to be able to say hello to all of the dynamic women, Democratic women here in the state of Florida, and to thank you for a number of years ago designating me as your legislator of the year. I very much appreciate that. I am a product of the civil rights movement, and I graduated from high school shortly after the Civil Rights Act was passed here in Florida, here in the United States as well. And I can remember marching and protesting and sitting in and demonstrating to become a first-class citizen in the United States, and particularly to have the right to vote. My mother was born in 1921, and she was in her 40s before she had the right to vote here in Florida and here in the United States of America. And Election Day was like Christmas for my mother. And so I grew up understanding that voting gave us the opportunity to participate in our democracy and to choose our leaders. That's the important thing. We get a say in choosing who our leaders are going to be, and we can only do that if we vote. Now, getting the right to vote has not been easy. It's been a very long and very challenging task, a very difficult process. But I learned years ago that you don't get a second win unless you run a very long and challenging race. If you sprint from here to your bedroom, you don't get a second win. But if you run to the grocery store and back, you get a second win. And so, having been in the legislature and having left the legislature, I'm back and I've gotten my second win, because it has been a very long and a very challenging process to make sure that every eligible voter could cast their ballot, and not only cast the ballot, but to make sure that the ballot is counted. And that is what I have been working on since I came to the legislature. And when I came back to the House, I championed House Bill 1365. I mentioned that my mother looked at Election Day like it was Christmas, And so one of the things that House Bill 1365 would have done was to make Election Day a holiday so that people could take off from their jobs without fear of any kind of repercussion and go to the polls and cast their ballot. I also proposed in House Bill 1365 that any ballot that is postmarked by Election Day should be counted. The postmark is important for legal documents. Why would it not be important and recognized and honored when we talk about voting? We had ballots that were postmarked by Election Day, but because they were not received in the supervisor of elections office by 7 p.m., they did not count. We had many ballots that were thrown out because someone without training deemed that the signatures didn't match. And certainly if you voted, if you registered to vote 20 years ago, and today, maybe you have arthritis or maybe your hand isn't as steady as it used to be. And so we had people, signatures have changed, and those ballots were thrown out. So we demanded training for people who make that kind of critical decision about whether or not the signature matches. And then I proposed in House Bill 1365 that we take the subjectivity out of it and look at the last 4 digits of your Social Security number rather than your signature. We have a directory here for medication or prescriptions that is honored, and they use the last 4 digits of the Social Security number. Now, I wish I could report to you today that all of those proposals in House Bill 1365 were accepted by my colleagues in the legislature, but I cannot say that because they were not. So I am going back again to work on expanding our electorate. We should not be making it harder for people to vote, but making it easier for people to vote. We need to be expanding our electorate and not contracting our electorate. And we have a very strong team of people working with the voter protection force with the Florida Democratic Party. And some of those people have been working for more than 30 years, but we need to increase our bench. And so for all of you who are listening, we want you to join us in the voter protection process. Now, this year, we know that we are going to have a higher than average number of ballots through vote by mail. And we really don't want people standing in long lines where you can't social distance and endangering their health in order to cast their ballot. So there will be more vote by mail ballots than normal. And so we're going to need people to help us out to collect those ballots, to get them to the supervisor's office. We're asking for deposit boxes where people can drive by and leave their ballots in a secure deposit box that has a camera, a GPS tracker, so that we know that the chain of command of custody is secure and we don't wonder what happened with those particular ballots. This year, consider your vote by mail ballot and insurance policy. If you choose to go to the polls, you can still do that. You can take your ballot to the supervisor's office if you want to do that. But remember, we had hurricanes in the past, I think it was 2 elections, 2 years ago. And so think of this as an insurance policy and ask for your vote by mail ballot today. We also need help finding those people who are now returning citizens who paid their debts to society. We need to locate them and encourage them to register and to vote. Now, we know that Governor Ron DeSantis is challenging. He's appealing using your tax dollars. He's appealing a judge's ruling that says returning citizens should be able to register and they should be able to vote. He's doing this even though Florida has no reliable, consistent database that you can go to determine whether or not a person has legal financial obligations. Did they pay it? I mean, where's the database? It does not exist. So he's using tax dollars to make sure that the voices of certain people are not heard. And if we want people to choose their leaders, and Governor DeSantis says that he is one of the best leaders, then why is he afraid of having people vote? Why is he afraid of hearing the people's voice? This year also, we are celebrating 100 years of suffrage, of having women gain the right to vote. And nobody gave it to us. We fought hard for it, and we earned the right to vote. So I am here today to encourage each of you to join the voter protection team, work in your communities to encourage people to request the vote by mail ballot, to help them get those ballots back. We're asking in every county, all 67, that the supervisors of election would put a postage stamp on these return ballots so that they can be dropped in the mail and go back, and that they would be counted if they are postmarked by election day. So it's a big job. We have an opportunity to bring about some change that's needed. And as I said when I began, it's been a long and challenging road, and you have to make a long-term commitment. And remember, you get your second win if you run a long race. So thank you all for inviting me and having me part of this discussion tonight.
Thank you, Representative, for your inspiring remarks. And I'm happy to report that in Alachua County, our supervisor of election sends prepaid vote-by-mail ballots.
Outstanding.
Thank you.
Outstanding.
As we are all aware, this November's election is truly a battle for the soul of our nation. It is imperative that we all work together to energize voters for Vice President Joe Biden. No matter how excited our base may be to elect him, none of that matters, none of it, without safe and secure elections. And we know vote by mail is central to the Democratic winning strategy. Thank you for your continued dedication to promoting vote by mail and fighting for safe elections in the legislature. Next up, we're going to hear from a representative from the Democratic Women's Club Political Committee. We're going to welcome another fierce Democratic woman commissioner, Commissioner Gail Johnson from the city of Gainesville, right here in my own backyard. Her grandfather was the president of the NAACP, Joseph Judge, and instilled a lifelong passion for education and social justice in Gail, as well as a desire to build a better community. She is a small business owner with a passion for food and the local food movement, which she expresses through her catering company, Delicious Delivered, and it is delicious. As a working mother and entrepreneur, Commissioner Johnson understands the many challenges that working families face. As a commissioner, she will do more to address economic inequalities and work to create a Gainesville where everyone can enjoy the wonderful life and amenities we have here. Welcome, my dear friend, Commissioner Gail Johnson.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chestnut, for that wonderful introduction. I'm really happy to be here with you all today. I do want to make a small correction. I am no longer a small business owner because, as everyone knows here with being an elected official, it takes so much time. So I've dedicated my time fully to being a commissioner right now. But I'm so thrilled to be here. You know, I'm going to talk a little bit about racial equity right now. I'd like to talk to you about some of the work that we've been doing here in Gainesville. And in the 5 minutes that I have, I'll talk about kind of where we were a year ago and where we are right now. And, you know, to me, this is a really pivotal moment. I'm so thrilled to be living in this moment and in this time in the United States of America and in Florida, and specifically in Gainesville, Florida, because right now we have a huge opportunity to shift the conversations and make real policy changes. So I'll talk a little bit about where we were a year ago. We joined coalition is called it's called GARE, and that's the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, and it's essentially over 200 different jurisdictions across the nation that actively work towards racial justice and racial equity within their jurisdictions. So there's school boards, there are municipalities, there are water districts, everything. So I went to this conference, I learned so much, and I came back and I was able to, I'll just tell you the 7-part motion that I made and then where we are today from that. So we started with a resolution that be part of our strategic framework. And then what we did is that we have an Office of Equal Opportunity. And what we did is that we reorganized that to include equity. So now the office is the Office of Equity and Inclusion. And in addition to that, we know that we can't do this work without being resourced well, because we can't just say we're going to do something and then give $0 to it. So I was able to get about $600,000 over the next 2 years, and also 2 additional FTEs to do some of this work. And then what we did is that we convened a subcommittee made up of 4 different commissioners, where we were gonna focus specifically on the policy and the racial equity policy in Gainesville, having to do with, 1, workforce equity, making sure that at all levels of government, that it's representative of our community. The workforce is representative of our community within the city of Gainesville. We're also going to look at community engagement and what that means, because oftentimes, as we know, is there's sometimes a very vocal few that show up and that make their wishes known, and then we base policy on that. So what we were doing in this committee was making sure that everybody's voices were heard, so that when we made decisions, they were made with everybody at the table and everybody in mind. And then we wanted to make sure that our procurement process was equitable and fair. What we understood when we looked at the data, we understood that very, very few Black-owned, people of color-owned, women-owned businesses were working with the city of Gainesville. I'll just give you a little statistic. I'd say $91 million in procurement in 2018, and we spent $3 million with women-owned businesses and $170,000 with Black-owned businesses, and people of color, it was somewhere around $400,000. So that just tells you how big the problem is. So we wanted to make sure to tackle that. And then we're also looking at equitable development. We have a problem that is not, it's not just in Gainesville, it's nationwide, but many of our Black neighborhoods, or historically African-American neighborhoods, are disappearing because of gentrification and displacement. We wanted to make sure to address that. So that's the work that we're doing in the subcommittee right now. We also are convening a community-wide task force, which is going to be representative of the University of Florida, Shands U of Health, Santa Fe Community College, the school board, and the county, really the largest players at the table that help to define this, the work that happens in this community. We want to answer the question, how can Gainesville become more equitable? So this is the work of this convening task force. And like I said, we also dedicated some resources to this. So that's where we were a year ago. And I'm really happy to say that within that year, we have been able to, we created these racial equity core teams within the city of Gainesville, because ultimately what we want to do is we want to make sure that every single decision that we make in the city goes through something called a racial equity toolkit. And that means that we answer a set of questions so that we understand the outcome is racial, so that we understand that the outcome will be racially equitable. And this ranges from questions like, what specific results are you seeking to achieve that advances racial equity? What existing data do we have to rely on? In what ways have we engaged the community on this issue? Who will experience the benefits of this decision? Who will experience the burdens? And most importantly, how will you mitigate unintended consequences? Question 5, is this accessible regardless of ability or status? And how will this address the needs of our most marginalized communities? So we have this toolkit, and what we hope to do through the racial equity core teams that we're building within each department is that major decisions go through this racial equity toolkit. And then we're expanding on that, right? So we're going to establish a budget equity tool, so that as we establish our budget every year, we run the budget through the toolkit to make sure that the budget is equitable. So I'm proud to say that that's where we are right now. We've hired one person. We need to hire another person. You understand that sometimes government is like swimming uphill through molasses, but I feel like we're at a really good point right now. We have decided that our comprehensive plan we're redoing our comprehensive plan at this point. And we decided that the foundation of this and the ensuing policies are going to be grounded in equity. So that's another really exciting piece of this work that we've been doing here at the City of Gainesville. And, just to kind of touch on the work specifically that we're doing with COVID-19 and race and equity, we've also asked that any decisions that we make related to COVID-19 are run through this race and equity toolkit. So we've done that through some decisions that we've made with some relief to our small business owners and our neighbors, as well as something as seemingly a decision as benign as wearing masks. But there are racial kinds of questions, racialized questions that you need to ask with those decisions. So we at least go through those questions so that everybody is aware. And I'm really excited about that work that we're doing. So thank you for the opportunity to let you know what we're doing in Gainesville.
Well, I said thank you, Commissioner Johnson. So I just wanted to thank you for visiting with us tonight. And the work that you're doing is absolutely phenomenal. And it's really noteworthy, and love to see more of this going on around the country. So it's something that we should all be paying attention to.
Thank you
for your service.
Thank you.
I also want to thank Representatives Driscoll, Thompson, and Osley for spending time with us this evening. We heard some really great tips. My name is Monica Reedus. I'm the first Vice President for the Democratic Women's Club of Florida. We are working really hard out here to make good things happen, and seems like one of the biggest themes today and one of the biggest pushes today is vote by mail, as was reiterated by most everyone. As Chair Rizzo said, we have 145 days to November 3rd to the general election, and then we have the primary, however, August 18th. So we really need to get out, hit the ground running. We don't want to be in a space where we have long lines. We have a resurgence of COVID right now that we're looking at. We don't know where we'll be in August and November. So please push vote by mail. Really excited about what we've been able to complete tonight, and looking forward to working with you out in the fields. Thank you so much for coming and spending time with us. Have a good night.